appreciate the members being here. We'll have an important agenda, some important things to deal with. This is the first time we've met this year. We have waited until we had numerous items to deal with, and I think we have some good ones today. The first order of business today will be approving the minutes of July 18, 2022. This was a very active group last year, led by Cindy Slater. They did a truancy challenge with the school system. They worked with Hillcrest, several other items, and really began this committee work effectively. So if we would take a look at the meetings agenda, the minutes for our last meeting, which was last year. Anybody?
Make a motion.
So, yes, yeah. Oh, this is November. Yeah, we'll do it then. Yeah. Okay, we'll wait because here, Lori's on the first part of this. Yeah. Okay. I'll overview a little bit the agenda for today while we're doing that. We're going to be basically looking at our rules and procedures to begin with. Bradley County Commission rules, I think that's probably the first place we should start. Had a very good meeting a few days ago with our legal attorney who shared with us our parameters with changes of our handbook. Lori did a great job going through the clerical items and items that we has come up with things that we might want to update, we might want to bring to the full commission's attention. This meeting basically will be equivalent to a work session because we're going to go over these, and then we'll have another meeting to actually send it on to send our findings, because you're going to add some things I'm sure that you would want to have as a committee to the future agenda that we'll put together. The second item of the agenda is A, is B, C, D, E, and F, and we'll be mostly looking at the legislative delegation. What we would be looking at is what's come up through the various committees. So we'll be looking at the items as you see there. So Lori is going to be presenting pretty much the clerical items, so we'll just go to a pause here, have her come back, and then we'll get started. Okay, you have before you the July 18th, 2022 Legal and Legislative Committee. Give you a chance to look at that quickly, and we'll move forward. Any action you'd like to take on the minutes? Thank you, Commissioner Slater. That's moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Alford. Welcome our members this year. Haven't been able to really say that. This is going to be an important, yes, ma'am. Yeah, let's do a vote. Yeah. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Carried. This is going to be a heavy political year. A lot of things going, a lot of things will be going in our community. As chairman of this committee, I believe that we stay in our own lane. I'm not for taking on all the political questions that will be out there that will be in this new year and as we move to 2024. So I think this committee, from my vantage point, I can be corrected by you, will be coming, the agendas that we will have will be coming from our members, will be coming from the mayor, will be coming from our constituency that asks their members to bring this to this committee. I know we can get off on so many different tangents in a legal and legislative that we need to be careful of taking everybody else's agendas. This committee is going to be looking at what this, if a member wants to bring this to the committee, they have every right to do that, and we're encouraged to do that. And each of the members will bring theirs, the mayor will bring his, and those department heads that feel like something should be happening can as well. But just hit me today that with everything that's in the newspapers, that everything's going on, we have school board that'll take care of a lot of the school, as they have this week, the school issues. And these items that we're looking at today are our items that we need to be moving forward through. Let's start at the beginning on agenda items A1. We thought, first of all, give credit where credit's due. Our county attorney and our administrative assistant spent an hour and a half, 2 hours with me 2 days ago to go over some of the items, particularly the rules and procedures, and then moving on forward to the legislative delegation. So thank you for your work with that. I appreciate that. It really helps me. Let's move forward with the clerical items, and you can, I guess, Laura, would you like for them to just take the items through this and kind of move into where we want to go? Yeah. Let's start with what clerical items you have on your agenda. Yeah. Yeah.
To them as the board throughout, and that was one of the things that he said. Yeah. I'm not sure anybody knows who we're talking about when we say the board. Can we clean it up and use some familiar language there? So that's one item. Under Rule 1, you can see the location of the second Monday of the month is to be determined by the county commission chairman. We all know that we meet here as put forth in this rules of procedure. Unless there is a reason to meet off-site, so that needs to be cleaned up. I mean, it's just some minor things. And then on page 2, Rule 3, order of business, you can see that the vice chairman is referred to as chairperson pro tempore, so we need to change that language to vice chair. The numbering of the agenda, as you can see, with just a quick look, is got a couple of errors in it, but then we also need to add a couple of things. For instance, report from the county mayor needs to be moved up as to be consistent with the agendas that we use each meeting date. Right. And then also you'll notice that the county mayor is referred to as the county executive. Certainly we've not had a county executive in Bradley County in quite some time, and that's another clerical item to clean up. So there's just a couple of things of that nature that we would like to clean up during this process.
Just last week, a gentleman asked me if I was still on the Board of Education. I told him it's been a long time. So to say the Board of Commissioners just is redundant to me. We looked at that. The county executive position has been the county mayor and the clerical items that we're mentioning will be your decision as we make those. So we'll be looking at this as we move forward with each of these items. Other clerical items you have? Laura? That was it? That's the main one, yeah.
Pretty much it, Chairman.
Right.
For the clerical items.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Vote on these, change these today? Yes. No, we're not.
We were planning to get you all at the next meeting a complete revised version that would have all of these changes.
Then we'll go over those side die and make the call at that point. And you may have, as you review this, some items you want to put in here. There might be something that you would like to add. Well, let's move swiftly then to Rule 6A, resolutions and introductions. Any proposed resolution may be introduced only by a member of the board, and the clerk or chairperson shall not receive or file any resolution that is not reduced to writing and signed by at least 2 members. We have not had that enforced probably for several, my era, I don't remember, or we required that for a resolution. We might want to put in how it's introduced and do our own wording as a committee. I've always thought resolutions happen from this body. When an individual has something to present, they present it here, then we agree that that should be followed up, and we get a resolution from there, and then it goes to the clerk and our team to put that together. So let's kick this one around. What do you think about introducing resolutions? Laura, you have some ideas? Did we kick around some of that? Any comments you all have about introduction? Commissioner Slater. Right.
If I could, the word introduce bothers me. I can see it being a problem down the road in future. I can't do resolutions, but I do often introduce them, and then someone else takes it on and puts it on the agenda. So this is, if you were technical about it, says I can't do that.
Well, then that could be moved into the wording that the mayor.
Yeah, I think you ought to look at that wording, because I'm not wanting to do resolutions. That's your job, but
if you want
they
to
are
recommend
introduced
that,
by me from time to time. So,
great point. Good point. Yes.
yeah, and only introduce them, because I'm not wanting to do them. But we did bring you a lot of them.
Sounds good. Any other comments? This one, and I keep reminding you that this is yours to review when you have time. Look at any other items. These are the ones that kind of jumped out at us in our pre-planning of this. Any further discussion there? Rule 6. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. 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 B. Yeah. Right. Have we ever had that? I don't think so.
No.
That would be good to nix at this point. Now look at that.
And
So
before you go to
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
8,
Yeah.
which is next on your agenda, look at 7B, where it says that when you have appointments, vacancies and appointments, it says that we advertise. I think that's been changed. Your assistant advertises for those now.
Okay, not the mayor. Advertised by commission.
Do what?
Oh,
Well,
wanna
yeah,
review
just
the whole
probably just need to work on that whole paragraph. Right.
7B? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we covered 6A, covered 6B. Now we added 7B. Let's jump. We still have 6A we've done. We still have 8 to look at. Any through here, and I know this is a lot to look at in this meeting. These are all up for grabs. Any changes that you think? Action and appointments. we, I mean, go ahead.
Are we moving to Rule 8?
I was gonna tell you how tight we got into this. We looked at 7C, just if we could say A or nay, or we could say something else besides yes or no. This is 7C, just below there, 7.6, 7C, to show how tight we were looking at stuff, whether you should say yes or no and each member vote, or whether we say aye, but we decided yes or no is acceptable. Let's move to the next item. It would be Rule 8, committee membership. Lori.
States the commission chairperson shall name the internal committee chairperson and place the members on committees based upon these requests, and it goes on. If you compare this language to the language found under Rule 16, I believe it is, on page 8, you'll see 16A, all committees, standing and temporary, shall meet and elect from its membership a chairperson. Well, we all know that every September, the county commission chairperson appoints internal standing committees and the chair people for those committees. So probably need to clean that up so that it reflects our procedure.
This would be the chairperson would chair.
And then also down under Rule 8, ad hoc committees. Let's see. Again, it's the third sentence there. It says the chairperson then places the members on ad hoc committees based upon individual commission member expertise and experience. And there again, it is practice for our county commission chairperson after the ad hoc committee has been voted upon and approved by the legislative body, that the chairperson appoints the ad hoc committee and the chairperson of that committee. So they do not, it's not practice that they elect their own chairperson.
And this is the member. Is that complete, Rule 8? More to do?
And it completes Rule 16. I just wanted you to see the difference in the wording of procedure on those two.
Very good.
On the ad hoc, though, I think we need to at least see if it's worthwhile that the ad hoc committees have to be, quote unquote, formally dissolved, or they have to have an effective date. And that if they go past that effective date, they have to be renewed. Because I think we've still got some ad hoc committees still out there from like first term I was here. I mean, and they, we never officially dissolved them. Some of them, I think we did. The one where we looked into the sheriff's budget, that ad hoc committee on the forensic study or whatever that was then. That was a quick and easy one, but I think we have others. So how about this, Mr. Chairman, that we ask Lori at her convenience to provide a list of all ad hoc committees that are currently in existence, I guess.
Very good,
And but when we create an ad hoc committee, it needs to have an effective date.
It ought to say that. It says temporary, but it ought to go on to say and should include a ending date. That way it'll go away.
Yeah, unless it's renewed for some reason. But I mean, if
Great point.
by definition, ad hoc means, you know, they can't get it done within a year or two or something like that, then it probably needs to be an internal. Just my 2 cents on that.
Closure. Okay, we got that. Great. Good addition. Any other comments on the items so far? Okay. Now we get into legislative delegation. And these are items that have been brought forward by either our committees. Sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Sure, Commissioner, yeah.
Under it talks about internal committees and then external committees, and obviously understanding that internal committees are committees for the commission. But under resignation from an internal committee, it talks about any member who wishes to resign from an internal committee should inform the commission chairperson. Then it goes on to say the chairperson then appoints another commission member to fill the committee at his or her discretion. But there's also ad hoc committees out there that have people who are not commissioned, who are not commissioners. Should that language be in there based on the ad hoc and that instead of a commission person be appointed to it, that if it's like broadband, that another person from one of the broadband, like if somebody leaves charter or whatever that is on that broadband committee, because in this language it basically says that a commission person has to go back on there instead of someone who is an expertise for other ad hocs. I don't know if that's
Aren't most ad hoc committees appointed by the chairperson for us? Most all of them are. Would this not be the same? If they resign, then
it
it
just
could.
says appoints another commission member.
Which line is it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
instance, on the education or the population ad hoc committee that I serve on, there are school board members on that too. So to Josh's point, if a school board member would resign, this reads that another member would be appointed to fill that position instead of another school board member.
Yeah.
Our internal committees just specifically for commission members only, not for school board members or experts in different fields or studies or things like that. And so we have ad hoc committees that have people who are not commission members on it, and by these rules would state that those members should not be on those committees at this time. But obviously they should. And so the rules and procedures just need to reflect that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we could strike the word commission before member so that the chairperson, based upon individual member expertise and experience.
Or should ad hoc committees go under external committees / sorry, should external committees and ad hoc committees have their own subsection in this to where it would be external committees / ad hoc committees, and then have ad hocs move down to where that it would then be in the language that it could be appointed by the chairperson of the county commission for commissioners and or expertise in the field of the ad hoc.
Can we play with that at the next meeting?
There is a difference between external committee and ad hoc, right?
Yeah.
I mean, our audit committee is technically an external because we have 3 civilians. HCI is an external committee. They're not ad hoc. They're going to be forever. There is that difference between the two. But I think what you're talking about is the proper procedure for resignation and replacement, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
That are not internal committee members.
Right.
And based on the language in our rules and procedures, internal committee members are county commissioners or appointed thereof. Is that correct?
My suggestion would be that we basically create a new section that exactly looks like the one that currently says resignation from an internal committee to say resignation from an ad hoc committee, and then spell it out almost identical, but changing the language to remove that it has to be a commission member so that resignation from an ad hoc committee is addressed separately. That would be my suggestion.
That's a great one. That would solve.
This is policy, so we're getting into the the weeds of it, but take the nursing home board and HCI, those are district appointments. So nominated by members of that district, two commissioners of that, is it still the chairman going to appoint the nursing home board?
No, because those are not ad hoc committees. Those
Oh,
would
okay,
be
you're-
deemed external
this-
committees. And really, to be even more technical, we probably could create another section that addresses replacement of external committees if you wanted to, but
Well,
and keep in mind that these rules don't always address everything, but if you're going to address something, then, you know, to do it consistently and also,
this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
exactly. So we could certainly do it,
Let's
but
do,
if we add a section for ad hocs, that would certainly address those. But I would deem HCI and nursing home as external
Yeah,
committees.
I've always done it. My bad.
so we're agreeing here that you all will put review this, take this into place, put it in your language, and then that will be the final language that comes to our next meeting. Great. Perfect. No, that was great. Thanks for presenting that. Okay, legislative delegation, overspending, budget repercussions. How we want to handle that?
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I believe that's the one that I asked for, and I'll say we, because
Yeah.
we're all one happy family. As we know, we are unaware of anything that this commission can do if an elected official or department head goes over the appropriations in their yearly budget, their annual budget. And then it's up to the mayor's office and finance director during true-ups to basically move money out of the fund balance if necessary and stuff like that. And I just would like for our legislative bodies, because can't be the only, and we've talked to the County Commission Association and CTAS and all the people, if the legislative body up in Nashville, because they ultimately tell us how we can do things, ask them in their next session, because this session is pretty much already set in stone, to look into what can the local legislative bodies, the 95 county commissions, do if an elected official just basically, well, not to be disrespectful, but bluntly just goes over their budget, knowing that there's nothing to be done except they'll probably, we in the mayor's office doesn't allow this because they move money out of the fund balance to cover those overages, so they don't get written up by the auditors, to the best of my knowledge, right? So I would just like for our legislative bodies, Senator Lowe and Representative Raper, he was on finance, both of them were on finance at one time, to basically take this up and see if there's anything that can be done. There's even the will for the General Assembly to do this. I've talked to other commissioners in other counties, and some of them were like, well, we don't really have that problem, but some of them said, yeah, we have some knockdown dragouts. So all I'm asking is that we ask our legislative bodies, like we did on the truancy and some other things, just to take a look at this and see if there's anything that they can do in Nashville to help the counties out. That's all I'm asking today.
Good point. Further discussion on that potential request? Mr. Hofer.
Not put that in a letter coming from this,
Okay.
asking that. Hope make it
Yeah.
draft
You know,
That's
further
it for the B1.
Well,
And yeah, I
Then-
mean, all these,
then let's-
I make too many assumptions. I'm assuming all these are gonna have to be formalized in a letter.
and this individual, is the motion for just this individual one, or have a letter? for several?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to, have a formal letter drafted and presented to the full commission, and sent to our legislative bodies, members, at the appropriate time.
Referencing overspending of budget
Yeah.
repercussions. So been moved that we create a letter and send that to our delegation. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Alford, further discussion? So we call the roll?
Aye.
Aye. I think,
Yes.
so by consensus, we agree to that. All right. Thank you.
Yep. They do. We're not the only ones. Actually, I think we're pretty civil. Oh,
Chairman Winter,
Yes, sir.
having a memory loss here.
would it
Commissioner
be behoove us also to copy the comptroller on that letter?
Mm,
Because he's actually the one
Yes,
that controls
yeah.
it.
He doesn't care as long as we fix it at the end of the year.
Right.
And-
No, I understand that.
The simple fix, if they'd do it, is give the county mayors the authority to deduct from the following budget any amount that went over this year, but so far, they've never been able to give us that authority.
Right.
That would fix it, I guarantee you, but.
Mhm. That's just a comment at this point. You don't want to add. Yes, sir. Well,
They've already voted.
no.
Marlon, Mr. Blake and I were talking about that the other day, and I suggested the same thing you just said, Mayor.
Oh, really?
Are there some,
Well, it's a simple
are
fix,
they
but
some chairman, or are they some departments that can be done that way, or they all, you can't take away from their budget?
well, it could be done with any of them pretty much. There's some that have those maintenance of everett things,
Yes, yeah.
like a road department, but schools, but it could be done right now with my departments. I just can't do it with another elected or appointed official. And
I think we'd be wise to kind of look into that anyway, if there is a possibility.
Further
of that.
discussion?
Yeah, well, we've already voted on it, but just to add to the top, is we
Commissioner
all
Blake.
know every 4 years we go through an election cycle, and sometimes elected officials don't win their campaigns, and then and this is kind of unique to Bradley County. You've got basically from May till the end of August to spend money, knowing that you're getting ready to have a successor. That we had that once as well. So being able to sit down and chat with elected officials about their budget, and them knowing that the county commissioner and or the mayor's office has some leverage, I think is what we're after. I mean,
Well-
it's the catalyst to a larger discussion, I'm sure, but at least we're getting it started.
Letters, very appropriate. And meeting with the delegations anytime. I think we have, each of the three members of the delegation for us have sat in this room, sat at different chairs, been a part of our action. So I think they would be realizing it puts a lot of pressure on them when you go from a public meeting to deal with these things.
A question for the mayor. Mayor, so you obviously have access to everybody's budget, and let's say that line item, whatever, gasoline was easy. And you know that they're getting ready to purchase something and they don't have enough money in that line currently as it stands, as you have the budget in front of you. You can basically say, we're not going to purchase that item until you get the amendment to the budget approved, right? But with salaries, you can't necessarily do that.
right, where they get us is at the end of the year. See, the auditors don't care if a line goes over as long as there's money in the budget, except for salaries. And so at the end of the year, if they've gone over in most of their lines just a little bit, but they're still okay, and then come June, salaries are more than's budgeted, then we've got to fix it to keep the comptroller off of us. And when we fix it, we have to go into fund balance. But as far as on purchases, yeah, the PO system prevents that from happening, but the salary thing, there's not a way of preventing it if they just do it anyway at the end of the year.
So we're asking.
And sometimes those are legit in their defense. Sometimes there's overtime and stuff that happens in June that can't be helped, but usually it can be if they're tracking their salaries.
and to me, good communication lines solve that, letting us know, letting the mayors know what's going on so that there's no torpedoes or surprises.
Good points. So a letter will be helped,
Yep.
and we'll look at the next meeting. I'll take a look at it.
Draft,
Okay.
letter writer.
All right, the next item of business is broadband grants reverse auction.
That's also
sir.
me, imagine that.
Right.
So it's my understanding, this is also ultimately gonna be a letter asking our legislative body to look into it. But what seems to happen is that you have, a better like word, ISPs, internet service providers, just cast a wide net, that as the state is granting out money so that they provide high-speed internet or any, or a broadband, they are intentionally, they're not fulfilling the full agreement of the grant. And there's really no ramifications for that. So, example, let's say that an ISP got a grant and they're supposed to provide high-speed internet to 1,000 residents. And some of those residents aren't quote-unquote profitable, in their opinion, or their analysis. Then, they didn't fulfill the full agreement, and they just basically bake that into the cost of doing business, pay their 5% penalty, and move on to the next grant application. What I think should be talked about and looked into is that ISP, as it stands, either one, cannot apply for any other grants, or that the penalty for not fulfilling the grant agreement should be higher than 5%. In other words, they have to make it high enough to where they can't really bake it into the cost of doing business, that you take that incentive away. So, and the reason why I believe this is a concern is because, as we've talked about and heard through meetings through the broadband, is that as of right now, to the best of my knowledge, the ISPs are not really competing with each other. So if you have one that has a territory and they decided that one neighborhood isn't very profitable, another ISP can't come in there and provide that service. They've kind of captured the market. So all I'm asking is that a letter be sent to, like the one for budget, to our legislative body, just to take this up and look and see. And again, this is not something unique to Bradley County. So I think it sits well at the General Assembly, asking them to look into it.
And proposing no future grants, or
But if they
over
feel like
5%.
that's something they can get their committees
as
and
a suggestion to
the General Assembly and ultimately the governor to sign off on, yeah, but at least look into it, how this auctioning is working up in Nashville with these state grants that are going out. So it was a concern that was brought to our attention, and we don't have anything because we're not the ones granting out the money, but we're affected by our citizens, our constituents are, by the way it's being operated right now.
money's gone, yeah. What's your pleasure? You want to add this to the letter?
I'm gonna make a motion that we draft a letter also, and ultimately this full commission will sign off on it with a vote, that we send it to our legislative bodies and they review it and take whatever action they deem necessary.
Move that. Is there a second to the motion? Good, by Commissioner Slater, that we contact the delegation for reviewing future grants, no future grants for these that are participating in getting contracts and then not fulfilling those, and then no future grants or a higher fee than 5% charge, or have them cease
And
and
our
desist.
expert letter writer is fully aware of how this works out.
Okay, it's moved and favored. Any discussion?
Aye.
Shall we call the roll? That's aye. Everybody good? All right, consensus. Done. All right. The next item is DUI reserve policy.
And that is also me, Chairman, but it came up in finance the other day. The probation director, Mr. Director Kenlin, came to us, and we probably need to kind of change the thing, and this is for open discussion, really, in my opinion. But what's kind of going on right now is, we're all on finance, so we heard it yesterday, so I won't repeat everything.
Right.
But basically, was it like 3 years ago, we went to the 50-50 thing? I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 years ago. We decided to put in 10,000. The state was supposed to match any of that, and it was, it hasn't been really utilized, I guess, until recently. But what's happening is, I guess, some vendors out there are sending a bill to the state, and I believe the state's even outsourcing it to another company to handle this. And they're basically using the money that's been earmarked as our 50% portion for stuff that is not ankle bracelet related. So I think what we talked about in finance the other day was just setting aside the amount of money that this commission deems appropriate, and just putting that right now it's 10,000 into the probation director's budget, and he uses it and basically forego the matching piece of it, right? Is that what we talked about?
I think so.
So that was or we ask our friends again with another letter, the General Assembly, look into this and say to the state, if you enter into an agreement with the counties, you guys moved to this 50-50 deal a couple of years ago for ankle bracelets, then when a vendor sends you a bill or an invoice for something that's non-ankle bracelet, then you should not honor that or pay that bill. It should be reserved for only when we're willing to pay our portion and the state pays their portion. So I whatever you guys want to do on that, but I wanted to bring it to our attention since it was brought to finance the other day.
So this
Funny.
this item, it needs to go to our delegation, you're saying, correct?
Oh,
Is that where you want to do with it?
man, my brain's half dead. I might have went off on a tangent. This is the wrong thing. Everything I just said, forget about it. I had that on my mind because it came up the other day. What this is about,
What is this?
we got so many things. What this is about is, same person, is a policy put in place that that when the director, Renee Samples, gives an amount, usually it's around August or something like that, that how much money has been collected in the DUI fund, that she is directed to basically put that $10,000 or whatever amount the commission does for that year. 10,000 seems to be the right amount. After that 10,000, then it's automatically a 50-50 split between the probation director and the drug court. Is that right? So there's no quote unquote fighting, and amendments are coming to the finance committee and ultimately to the full commission, and they're both asking for the full amount, and it's putting us in a position where, I mean, we're being asked to, split the baby, as the saying goes. So if we go ahead and put this into a policy, the mayor's office and Renee will know exactly what to do without having to come to us. And from what I understand, that seems to be an agreeable solution. Am I right or wrong? Please. The way I understood it was every year we have to basically designate how much we want to put in the ankle bracelet program.
That's
And
the 10. I think he's wanting to fund the IMF fund instead of doing the deal with the state, and you won't have to do that letter, that we fund it with 10,000 and then split the rest of it 50-50.
Finance voted for this, yes.
So if the drug fund has, at the end of the year, 30,000 in it, that's what Renee's come up with as far as our collection, then the first 10,000 will go into the ankle bracelet program, and then I'll obviously leave 10,000 to the probation and that'll be put in their line or expense in their line. And then the drug court will have their 10,000. And they'll know right in September what they're getting for the rest of the year, and we won't have this amendment issue that we've been having for the last couple of years.
Have we double-checked to make sure that that use of the money would be consistent with the restrictions? Because my recollection of that statute is, although Mr. Kinlan said, maybe I shouldn't speak on it because he says I have a conflict of interest on this issue, but I think that the restrictions are limited to in that fund, you would have to use it for only drug and DUI monitoring, not any indigent person.
Yeah, I think
So-
obviously the restrictions are statute, so,
Yes. So
when we put the money in there, the statutes follow the money in the line, or, I mean, we put it in there and the contingency is, you can't just go put it on salaries, you can't go buy a lawnmower or something like that. You have to use it for what the purpose is.
Correct, but what I'm saying is if we're using the 10 as our ankle monitoring match and it's coming from that fund, my assumption is that's only going to work for those being monitored that are either DUI or drug offenders. You wouldn't be able to put an indigent offender that's a
right.
murderer, for example, or a rapist or anything else. It wouldn't work. So I just think we just need to be careful about that to make sure that
absolutely.
that we can do it that way.
But when we did our quote unquote study from other counties on how they're using their DUI, I believe one of the counties that we chatted with, or that Lori, they are using it for. And that just because they're doing it wrong doesn't mean we get to do it wrong. I know that, but if the what's the word I'm looking for? If the controls or the pieces that need to be put in place, obviously. I mean, we don't want to be written up or anything like that, but I just think it's a good idea that the DUI funds the ankle bracelet program where appropriate.
And
I'm learning. Roll the tape.
It could be rationalized that most of those other crimes are drug-related also, so. I'm told by law enforcement everything's drug-related.
It is weird. So,
I mean, if you'll look into that to make sure that we don't get in trouble, I'd be forever in your debt. But that keeps our two friends from sending us amendments, and basically we're sitting there like, okay, you asked for 30,000, you asked for 30,000, there's only 30,000 in the fund, and it's always a fun day in finance when that happens. So let's go ahead, this puts it into a policy, and then the mayor's office knows what to do every year when the money comes out. So do we need a motion on that? I forget where we're at.
let's have a motion. What do you want to
So
do?
forget everything I said about the other thing. It was on my mind. But Mr. Chairman, I make a motion instructing or asking the mayor's office at the annual time when the DUI money amount is publicized or given, that the first 10,000 is designated for the ankle bracelet program where appropriate, and then after that, the probation director and the drug court will split the remaining amount 50-50, and also usage according to where appropriate as well. Again, the DUI fund is basically, I know it's kind of self-explanatory, but I believe it's someone gets convicted of it, a DUI, they have to go to a class. There's just fees that come along with being convicted of a DUI, and that amount accumulates over a year. That's where this money's coming from.
So this motion is to reassess this distribution of funds, do it appropriately, as you've identified here.
And Mayor, I don't.
First 10, is it first 10,000 we get? Break it out. First 10,000 we get, and you break out the rest 50-50, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're asking.
And probably what we'll do is still come to you with a budget amendment once we know the amount, but they won't have to be coming to request it. We'll just automatically do it.
Yeah.
Tell them how much.
So who does this letter go to?
I don't know if we have to have a letter on this one. I think
So we're not
mayor's
we're not
office
doing a
will
letter,
just
we're just,
recognize this as our new policy and implement it at the next cycle, which will be this August.
we're voting on this to request it be done
Yep.
by the full commission. Okay.
And the result of this is you no longer have to use tax money out of your 599 to pay for this.
Any further discussion? Yeah. Moved and seconded?
Sorry, thank you for
I
it.
think what'll really happen, Mylan, is she'll determine if it's usable for other things, and if it's not, we'll just make sure that it's going for indigent areas that are covered, and you may still have to decide from time to time if you want to cover those other indigents, if that's the ruling. Worst case scenario.
I would go to the next commission meeting. Very good. All right, any other finishing discussion on that? We'll move forward to the accessibility to finance committee agendas. We have had a request from an individual who would like to have not only the first page of the agenda, but all that's involved in the agenda process, getting us ready for meetings. We have some ideas about how that might work. I guess, first of all, do you want to hear the ideas we have and then see what you want to do with them? Or we want to say whether we even want to do that? What's your pleasures, committee?
Oh, first of all, let me make sure I got the right topic in my head of what we're talking about here. This is the request for our documents, our agenda, and with respect to the Finance Committee, our budget amendment packet, right? But it could apply to all committees, the Education Committee or Law, because you guys have documentation that comes along with your agendas as well.
This
It wouldn't
is-
be just for finance.
This request is just for finance. at
So
this
I
point.
believe what the quest is I was asked by a citizen the other day if they could have the budget amendment packet while we're going through it on finance. And I believe, Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, that they have to fill out the paperwork, what's it called, the Freedom of Information Act in order to obtain this document, right? And
Well,
well,
essentially,
they're asking for a document before we pull the meeting together, I think is what they're asking, right?
Friday, we get it.
the legal requirements of the public records law require us to respond within 7 business days or as soon as practicable, I think is the word that it uses. So yes, what we need to make sure, however we decide to deal with it, that we're dealing with every citizen the same way so that we have a policy in place that's fair. Our current policy, of course, has it set up so that they can either make requests through my office or they can make them directly to the department, and if the department has any issues, they can forward them to me. So yes, to the answer is they do need to make a public records request. The question would be how quickly, what is practicable, and how quickly we can respond to that. So ultimately, we have up to 7 business days, but of course they would most times would not get that agenda before the meeting if it took that long. So the question would be how quickly that turnaround time is.
Yeah, and finance works a little bit different than the other committees. We get the packet a couple of days before we meet, start reviewing it, going over it. Education and law, I don't remember how that, I mean,
Most everybody Friday.
you're the one who has to do this. What is your, I'm for them getting it, but I want them to follow your directive. I mean, if they have to fill out a form, they got to fill out a form. So
Well, I
we're
think,
looking for a recommendation from legal. How's that?
yeah, we already have one.
Well, yes. I mean, as I said, we have a policy in place, the public records policy, which of course would tell us how to address it, and of course that they are required to fill out a request form. If they submit that to Lori, though, as the person over those records, she would just have to let you all know how quickly she is able to, or can she respond, and some of that may depend on how many she gets, because certainly if the volume of requests increases and gets to the point where there's 50 of them, certainly her ability to respond to those is going to be slower the more she has. So ultimately, we have a policy in place that allows for public records to be processed. The practical question is how she's actually going to do that.
Why can't
Why don't
you
you,
just allow somebody to be added to your email list? And when you send out the agenda, you send it instead of to 10 people or 12 or 15, you send it to 16. What's the problem with that?
We have discussed this, and there's a plan we could do. It's just what the expense would be. It would also be, I believe when people ask for those things, there should be a way that the actual commissioner of that district knows that they're concerned about all of this, if it's a finance committee or whatever, and there be some conduit where a commissioner knows that to be honest with you, I think most of my district could care less to get a full budget that we see all the time. But some commissioners have people that really want to see all that. Well, that means to me, maybe they should know who those people are so they could do. So that there could be a procedure where they actually contact Lori with whoever the district commissioner is, that they want that to receive that as we receive it, and then that person would also know their interest in that, understand what it is, and be able to help us with whatever their concerns are. Or we just basically, as the mayor's just identified, say on the Friday that it goes out to all of us, that it goes out to those that have requested it from your office, and then look at what cost that would be. I don't know how many people from each district would want one of these, finance or from the other committees. If somebody's wanting it for every committee, more power to them. Commissioner Rogers.
Sorry.
come up here.
No, it's fine. I just have a question. Who updates the website for the Bradley County Commission that has the minutes and the agenda placed on it? I understand that we have a lot of committees, but the only committee that really meets on a regularly scheduled basis is the Finance Committee. Other committees as well do meet, not on a set time every single month, but this committee has been in place, and I know we've been waiting for it. So to add minutes to it or the agenda to a website, to our Bradley County Commission website, under a separate tab that maybe says committees, where they could click and be able to go to the Finance Committee to see the chairperson is Mylan Blake, and then be able to click on the minutes and the agenda. And once the minutes are put up later on, then there's no Freedom of Information Act request that would bog down Lori's office or Crystal's office, or request from commissioners for that information if we just made the information public through our website to where those people could then see those. I don't know how difficult the county commission website is to upload stuff. The websites that I run and operate are not very difficult to do personally. So I just didn't know if all it would take was the creation of that to where those minutes could be, and that would give you the ability, because once it starts with finance, I think we all know that it's going to be law enforcement, it's going to be education, it's going to be all the other committees as well that people will want the agendas for, and whatever the minutes thereof are going forward. And so if we just would put it on our website under a committee tab, then it would be available for the entire public, which would then reduce down the Freedom of Information Acts, or having to send it to, you might start with one email person added to an email, but by the time it's over, you might have 10, 15, 20, 30, however many people want this information. And they might only want it for finance, or they might want it for all of them, and it gets to a point where Lori's sending, 60 additional emails monthly.
Ms. Freiberg, what is the extension of the law, the notice, and the expense? If the expense of this, if this were to expand, as Josh is saying, it could do, how does that individual that keeps asking for this, and multiples of keep asking for that, how do they help? Are they required? If they ask for the volumes from our administrative assistant, they ask for that, is there a fee per page? Is there stuff that's in place? Is there a requirement that it's just done Because if we're looking at what, I'm not that astute on all the costs of computer services, but if we're looking at that and we're looking at every committee that we have here, that could evolve to that, what kind of expenditure, and are we required to, if they want to sign on there, that they pay a fee for that?
No, you cannot charge under the public records law. For instance, if we were to make it available on our website, you can't charge the citizen under the public records law for any costs associated with that. You can, as the governmental entity, decide how you provide the records. If you have them in electronic format and they request them in electronic format, then you have to provide it that way, and you cannot charge for electronic format. So if I email you a record, I cannot charge for the time it took me to create the email. If I give you a hard copy of the records, you can be charged 15 cents a page, but you can't charge the person if you have it scanned in digital and they request it scanned in digital. You can charge if you put it, for instance, on a flash drive, a CD, a DVD. We charge, and you can charge, actual cost of that. So typically we charge, I believe, $10 for flash drives, $5 for CDs, and so you can charge for those things. But you also can charge if it takes the employee who's doing the request more than 1 hour to respond to the request, i.e. gather the records, make whatever they need to do as their part of it. You can charge the employee's hourly rate in excess of 1 hour. But if responding to the request takes less than 1 hour, you can't charge for that either. So that's probably more than what you wanted. But yes, there's very specific things that you can and cannot charge for under the public records law.
Is it doable? Is this doable for us?
It's certainly doable. I think that we would just need to get with IT and get a cost from local government that runs our website and adds pages, and just get a cost for that. But they could be uploaded the same time, or practically the same time that our county commission agenda packets and minutes are uploaded.
So is it possible to, between now and the next meeting, to have how that plan could come about? How you would need additional assistance to do that, or what the projected expenditures would be that way, time-wise as well as otherwise, with your workload?
Surely.
I know other departments look at whether they add another person to do all these things. We could add anybody that could add to what you're doing anyway right now. You do such a good job. So if that's an agreement with you all, yes, Commissioner Alford.
Why do we want to look at the website when I think the mayor made a good suggestion and something we talked about? Why couldn't we just add when she gets ready to send out the financial packet, if John Doe wants a copy of it, just add a list down there like under Louis Alford, just add another one that says personal or chair or somebody, put their email address, and when she punches the button to send it out to all of us, it goes out to that person also. I don't see why that would be complicated. We don't have to look at the website. You don't have to do all this extra stuff. But the person that wants it has to call in and say, would you send me a copy of that? Here's my email address. So when Lori puts it in, she hits the button, sends it to them.
And you would be notified?
Yeah.
That's my whole point. I went out of office, but I wanted to continue to watch and see what you guys did on Finance Committee. You add my name to the email list, and I get that agenda and that packet every month. It doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime.
Good point.
Might we add a requirement that they actually put their request to be added in writing, so that they have to send me an email so that I have the correct email, and if any.
And
That was another thing I was going to recommend, that you have a form that they come in and fill out, that I want these copies sent to me whenever. So that makes them have to come in and fill out the proper form to get what they want.
You want to make that in the motion? That's your motion?
Yeah,
no,
come up with a form that you can work with.
Okay. Been moved. Is there a second?
did it get a second?
No.
Well, I'll second it for discussion. Doesn't mean necessarily I'm gonna vote for.
Been seconded.
The adding them to the email and getting them to, I guess the form is gonna speak a lot to it. They're gonna say what documents they want or from what committee they want. And, I'm sure you guys get emails where you're still on somebody's email list from 1999. I mean, they're gonna have to, it's at an annual level, re-up, something like that. And when you send out the email, if this goes through, blind copy them on there, because you guys get the emails too, where you get the email and the two has got everybody's email address for the last 5 years on it. But so if you blind copy, I can't see this person's email. That's the whole concept of a blind copy. But I'm not totally opposed to putting it on the website as well, at the right time, because that actually helped me a lot, because we're going to these devices and we're going to be using that website to pull the PDF and stuff like that. So I don't see that that's a bad thing. I can see us doing kind of both in a way. But there is a cost to it. We're going to have to get with local government. Adam, how much did it cost us in general terms when we changed it to put the agenda? We put the agenda in minutes on there, right, for the full commission. Then we had to pay local government a couple $100 or a couple thousand or something like that.
That was prior to my time, but I know that we get so many calls per month for minor things. For instance, when we added the video link to that same page, I don't think they charged us at all for that.
Oh, okay, good.
Because it was a relatively easy fix. So if you're assuming that you're operating from the same page and not creating a second page altogether, I would hope that maybe it would be no cost to do that.
So if this is not part of the motion, but just when you're getting ready to start your budget request, if you'll look into it, get a cost estimate on what Commissioner Rogers, because I agree with you, how much that would cost for local government to set that up. Lori will do the same that she does for the agendas and the minutes and upload them for the committees, something like that. I mean,
Okay.
if you'll look into it and get us a cost, if it's a couple $100, I think it's worth it. If it's going to be thousands of dollars like the HCI form, they quoted us, what, 100,000 or something? It wasn't worth it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I mean, my preference would be we don't put the burden on Ms. Moultrie to do that, because today it's the finance, tomorrow it's going to be education, next week it might be road department. So why would we not put it on the website and have the citizen go to the website and pull it off? I mean, so if I want it for education and I want it for finance and I want it for road, is that 3 requests I have to fill out to have my email added to 3 different emails from Ms. Moultrie?
I mean, what I was thinking is if you want the amendments to the budget amendment packet that we get, you need to specifically say that that's what you want, but you don't want the road list that we just, this thing, whatever, you don't want this. So that's why I was thinking is you got to specifically say what you want, or all of the above. I don't know. I mean,
And I'm not opposed of making the information available.
no.
I mean, that's their right to have that information. It's just where does it make the best sense? Is
I
it
agree.
adding it to an email? And does that email list become this long? And to your point, if it is an email list, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, it should be a blind copy, because we all know we get emails from people and people start replying to all.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Lori would be instructed to blind copy anybody who's on the list.
Right. Ms. Moultrie.
I think it's important also to note during this discussion that the agendas, the front page, like you have before you, that's available. Folks can go to the Bradley County webpage, go to County Commission, and select the calendar, and it shows all of our meetings. You hover over the meeting, and it gives you the agenda items. And as you all know, typically it's just the minutes that are attached to most committee meetings other than finance. And there comes into play the budget amendment packet, and that's what they're after. But technically, the agendas are already out there.
So you're saying you're already doing the work. You're doing the basic work anyway for
Well,
the
it would-
committees,
it-
and then it rolls from that with their prescription, a
It
subscription.
wouldn't roll. I would have to add it to the calendar and then also have to upload, if y'all are desirous of adding a committee page to upload agendas and minutes. That would be another step. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the county commission committees, internal standing committees, are listed on our calendar. And on the calendar, you just hover and you can see the complete agenda items. It's not the page, but it says agenda items and they're individually listed.
So they already have that.
Mhm.
Okay, we have a motion to move forward. Would you like to present that? Oh, let's go. We're not going to vote on this. That's just by consensus. Who his motion was?
We have a motion on the
Yeah,
floor
yeah.
to develop a form to add a public email to the distribution and to require information to be requested on the form, such as which committee, which documents you prefer,
Submit
and
that.
to provide your address, your email address, et cetera.
Aye.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
And will this be a form that has to be filled out yearly? Or is it forever? And
I
amen?
would suggest using the public records form. That's what Lori and I were talking about. The public records request form has all that information on it. You have to, it tells you who you're submitting it to, your name, your address, your email, and then you specifically have to designate what records you're requesting. What Miss Lori will have to make sure she does, though, is that she does ask, and she can certainly seek clarification. If you get a public records request and you do not know what the person is requesting, you have the right to reach out to that person who's now given you an email address and phone number and seek clarification. You also could take the position, I do not accept prospective public records requests, meaning if the record doesn't exist the day you make the request, legally you don't have to accept that. Certainly that's one way to do it. Another way would be to make them put a time period that they're making that request. So that would be up to Lori as she's processing these forms and making sure she's clear on what she's supposed to be providing. But technically and legally speaking, a person can only request records that exist on the day they make the request.
So after I have heard you opine on that, to me it makes more sense that they go to the website and they pull it themselves off the website if they want it. I mean, I don't think Lori should have to, if the document's not filled out correctly, have to call them and say, Mr. Joe Citizen, what is it really you're looking for?
Requesting to be on the list.
One public records request, and the person says, look, I'm going to want finance agenda for the next year, she could do it that way, or she could require that they come every month and get a new records request that says this is what I want. So she could do that either way, but legally speaking, you don't have to accept a request, and if you don't have the document. What you're supposed to do within 7 business days is respond, which the response would be that record doesn't exist, and then you responded. And the reason for that it is very easy for things to drop through the cracks and very serious if you violate the public records law. So if you accept something that's a year out, and let's say Lori forgets to send the email or Lori doesn't respond, then you violated the public records law and accepted it that way. So she would just have to be careful to make sure that she's responding. So yes. Well, if they can sue you in court, and if you lose and violated it, they get 3 times damages plus you pay their attorney.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a substitute motion? I'd like to make a substitute motion that we make that information available on the commission website.
Is that foregoing the email thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second it so we can get it discussed. So we're just gonna have to get a cost estimate on that. I mean, I'm willing to, a couple $100, not like the HCI form that cost us $1 zillion. So to me, my decision is gonna be how much does it cost to do this? Because adding somebody, blind copying somebody is easy. It doesn't cost anything. It's just more headache for her. I get where you're going.
And then, you know, what if something happens to her? She becomes ill, she's not here, they don't get the information. We all know that it will become an issue if people don't get the information in an email.
Oh, yeah, and we know what happens, huh?
Well,
No, please do. Who?
have that.
So-
If that happens, then Lori can go to the website and download it for them.
But they would.
So, and
They
if they
wouldn't
don't
get
have
it.
an email, then they can't be on the list to receive the email.
And they wouldn't get the packet in advance of the meeting, because as we all know, a lot of times we hold the email distribution till 4:30 on Friday because we're still waiting on pieces of information. No way to get it transmitted to snail mail before.
We're giving it the best college try, I think. But pending the cost estimate,
And,
right? I mean,
yeah, we want to we'll have the vote here, but we'll say that the
how
next
fast will
meeting,
the government get back?
you'll bring a report back.
I mean, you gotta. Oh, done. You won't have any problem with me on that.
So as we make it, this will be the second motion on this we'll make.
Yeah.
We want to hold you give us a report back how this could be done at the next meeting. If it can be done financially feasible, if it can also be done to meet the needs that has been considered here, if others can come on board, how we would protect ourselves at the same time if they were concerned about it all. So we will meet again. We have to meet anyway on the other items here to identify that we're going forward with this and get a whole new rules and procedure that we'll submit to the full commission. That's going to be done within the next 10 days. You could put a pencil to it, what cost would be, your time, and what your recommendation of you've heard all that's been done here. And we want to look out for you as well as look out for our constituency and for us to get the communication out that needs to happen. So let's vote on this motion. And then if whatever.
I have one more question,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
So if we're gonna meet again in the next couple of weeks, should we just hold this till we meet again and you have the cost?
So you want a table? It's move the table?
Don't table.
Don't need a table.
You don't like table? Oh, you don't like, okay, let's postpone to the next meeting. Seth, I guess. Okay, somebody want to make that motion?
Yeah, there's a pending. Go to the website, pending
Estimates.
contingent on it. Comes in a couple $100, so it's 1,000.
So in the meantime, if I would request a packet of your finance agenda next meeting, and there's no cost to do that, you're not willing to add my name to that email list and send it to me as a citizen taxpayer of Bradley County. I don't know why, if there's no cost, you can't add my name to that email list and get it sent to me. I may not have the web page at home, but I do have email. I may not have email, but if I do, why can't I request it to be emailed to me before you vote on it? I'm just thinking of the taxpayers.
I had no problem with that. Somebody right now can ask for all documents. How do you do it right now? I mean, somebody's right in your
Currently,
office
it's an open records request.
right now.
and we
Somebody's
have
over in
up
your office
until
asking for
7 days.
documents.
This is an agenda packet that you're voting on, say, next Monday. You're voting on millions of dollars of budget amendments. I'd like to see those before you get them and vote on them. As a taxpayer, why can I not request that and get it?
I have no problem.
Well, today you can't. The open records addresses existing documents. These aren't existing until that meeting.
I'm looking at
I would think it would be a public record. I mean, if it's been created and finalized, is the agenda packet, that is a public record.
So if I ask to email it to me, why can't I do that?
Crystal, can that be done?
If Lori can do it, yes. As I said, we have if someone wants the finance agenda and packet, they should fill out a public records request. Lori should then process it quickly as she possibly can, consistent with public records. Now, I can't tell her what that is, and she may not know currently because it would depend on how many she gets. But yes.
But again, you're overcomplicating it. A public records request for documents that exist when I make the public records request. I'm wanting to request those documents for the next finance meeting that aren't out there yet, but when they're out there, will you please add one email address to your 15 you're already sending and send me one? Why can you not do that? Why do you have to go through all this discussion and argument about it? It's something this commission is voting on, and they're voting on spending taxpayers' dollars, so why can't I see it before you do it? And it's not an open records request until it's created, so I'm going to have to do that every single week or whenever you do that. I would just like to get your finance packet. That's all this is saying is give me access to your finance committee agenda and packet. We all get them. Why can't the people paying the bill get them if they request it?
Well, the answer to that is if we can, we certainly could. There's nothing in the public records law that prevents us from that, certainly.
All you got to do is add my email address, so we know you can do that. There's not a if we can. Now, this website, there's a question because we're at the mercy of local government. You know you can add my email address to that email list. I get them from the state all the time. I might have 500 people on it.
Yeah.
And it does not list their email address, by the way. It lists their name. It would say Gary Davis, in other words. It won't list my email address.
Mayor.
But there's 500 names on there, so they hit one button one time. It takes no longer than if it's 499 people.
Go ahead.
I don't know who you're arguing at. I mean, all I was trying to do is protect when I said that about the email addresses, if it has your name on it, all you have to do is double click it and that'll show your email address. Anyway, Lori, until we get, this is my opinion, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
and, Commissioner Slater, Louis, Mayor, until we get it finalized on the website, and it costs is the piece on that. If someone asks you for the budget amendment packet, if you'll be so kind as to just include them when you send it out, or if you want their own email with just constituent email and put it in a group or something like that, we should have this finalized here in a month or two. I'd be forever in your debt.
So this is another substitute motion we got here?
Just like you
But it's just saying
It's
to
a
use,
request to our administrator, it really,
I'll withdraw my motion.
And then you'll need to withdraw yours. Well, 'cause yours was, she was a substitute to yours, right? Unless you don't want.
Why should I withdraw it? That's exactly what the mayor was talking about, is what I proposed.
you,
And we've already voted to do it.
We haven't voted to do it. We had the
We
motion on
didn't
the
vote
floor.
on it?
No,
I'm
there was a
sorry.
substitute to
substitute
yours,
to
so
yours.
she withdrew hers.
Yeah.
Yours is still on the floor.
so
unless
hers
you
is off the
withdraw
floor.
it. You can do it either way you would like.
You want to keep your motion and us vote on your motion? You're saying it's the same exactly to what the mayor's just said? Right?
That was my motion, yes. But I will withdraw it with a contingency that we meet real soon to find out what the website's gonna cost, and I'll vote against that. I'll say right
May-
now, I'll vote against that.
May,
What? Okay, he's withdrawing his motion till you take a look at what the cost is going to be. And if we did one at a time, what that would mean, all that stuff, and we'll get back within a week. Does that work? All minds clear? Okay. We move to the next order of business, which is HCI Committee procedures. HCI Committee procedures, I think this came up in one of our last meetings about individuals not knowing exactly how whether they were eligible to apply or not. So I think we're asking HCI to take a look at their procedures in a way that's more conducive to the applicant. I think that's what this is about. Commissioner Slater.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think part of the issue is there were two groups that had applied that did not meet the qualifications of the program. And instead of being told up front that they don't meet the qualifications of the program, they were allowed to submit and do all the legwork on their end, and then to be told at the end, sorry, you don't meet the guidelines. So I think they were upset. You know, they did all this work thinking they were eligible, and then in reality they weren't. So if the HCI could, if someone's truly not eligible, they be told up front. And I don't know if Commissioner Blake has anything he'd like to add to that.
I just have a question for Lori. What did the HCI committee, when they review the initial pack, what do you call it, the first cut?
the letter of intent.
The letter of intent, what are they looking for on that? To the best of your knowledge, nobody's on.
To the best of my knowledge, they look at everything that's provided on the letter of intent. Name, address, phone, website, what the scope, what your proposed project is, just an overview of it, the
Okay.
amount that you're going to request.
So they do look at the project, whether or not it's a playground or a greenway sidewalk. They do look at that at that point in time. You know,
It's available to them.
it's available
yes.
to them. So I agree with Commissioner Slater. At that point in time, if they're saying that they want to implement a reading program for kids, which we all love kids, but that's not fitting the guidelines, they need to let the applicant know then and there that as good as their intentions are, that's not what the HCI with respect to the county commission is for, so that they don't go further. So in other words, it's a filtering system, if you will, for the applicants, that they know they don't get told months later that they never had a chance. So I agree that should be a directive to the HCI committee when they are processing and going through their committee stuff.
I think we're looking at ensuring that the
And they also, what's the other reasons, I mean, that they get denied? I mean, is that the,
That wasn't the only one during this grant cycle. I believe that there was one project in particular. They did question whether or not it met the scope of our HCI program, and they determined that it didn't. But they also noted, the project that was in question, they didn't make a compelling case that it would benefit the participants that they listed.
so, on, Commissioner Slater, I think it would be good that when they do, one, the full commission, or the finance committee and the full commission get a list of everybody who's applied. That usually happens in August or something like that time frame. And then the HCI committee meets, goes over it, and determines what projects meet the guidelines. We get a list of who is moving forward, and we get a list of who has just been quote unquote denied, so that we're aware of this as well. Not that we're deciding that, but just that we're aware of it. I think that would be prudent.
But
Do you agree? But that control needs to be put in place, beginning, so that we don't have what Commissioner Slater just described.
I think you're basically asking that to be more clear and more conducive to giving full information to the applicant before they get started.
Right. I mean,
So
if the
that they
applicant
know-
doesn't qualify, which they should know at the beginning if they would qualify or not, based on the project, then they should not be asked to submit a full proposal. I mean, they should be told after the letter intent that their project doesn't meet the guidelines of the HCI funds, in my opinion. Because they spend all this time coming to meetings and filling out all this information just to be told, sorry, you don't meet the guidelines. Then why were they not told that at the very beginning?
Really, an induction to the application process be completely put in place so they know whether they'd be, if they knew that they weren't going to be eligible, they wouldn't have started the job.
Correct.
That's particularly what your motion. Then you're looking at how we communicate with, they communicate with you all. Finance, make sure they work full commission. Been moved and seconded?
I don't have a motion. We've just got some.
Oh, I thought you.
Do we have to vote on this, or is this just communication back to them?
Or a letter, you're saying a letter to send to the chairperson to ensure that.
Indeed, yes. Might I add one other item for thought? I think that there is some subjectivity to what a capital project truly is. I mean, our HCI program is for capital projects within the scope of health, wellness, and quality of life. And I know just in the last two grant cycles, I have definitely seen committee members with differing opinions on what kind of capital project.
But the IRS has clear guidelines as to what determines a capital project. There should not be any ambiguity in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe. You chuckle, sir? Correct.
this is legislative committee. We could do a letter that would just be sent to say, please be more specific in the application procedures. We appreciate what you're doing, but at the same time, there are people that are disappointed that didn't know ahead of time.
So
We'd like to
Lori,
keep that.
you brought this to our attention. What do you need us to do? Give a better definition of what a capital project is? Oh, yeah.
Well, we got to be careful getting into HCI's business and what they're doing. At the same time, make sure that the public is being served in a way that can apply and they know they shouldn't be eligible anyway in the first place. So you didn't make a motion per se. So do you want the chair just to send a letter? Is that where I could send that to their, who is the HCI?
Lisa Stanberry.
Or that this is a challenging time with certain proprietor where we're not communicated with well. Shore that up. So that we want to build policy.
The letter would actually need to come from the county commission rather than
Will come out
recommend.
to submit to the chair to please be more specific in the
Oh, I'll send her a copy of the new policy.
application process.
Oh.
Consider the applicants before telling them they
I
weren't
think
even
we just
eligible.
need to inform the chair of the HCI committee to review the new policies that have been put into place. Can you hear me?
Yes, Commissioner.
Since we're gonna be meeting again pretty soon, why don't we just bring HCI committee policies and procedures in here and make any corrections other than the one you're talking about? We possibly could make that correction too, but there might be a couple other things we might wanna look at before we go ahead and revisit all that.
That's why you're a chairman emeritus. That's why that is. Yeah, yeah. I buy in that as chair. Is everybody comfortable with that?
They don't.
Very good.
HCI doesn't meet again until August anyway.
But we can still get their procedures and take a look at those. Very good solution. Thank you. Okay, the final resolution procedures. What are we talking about? Resolution
Is
procedures.
that me? Oh, hopefully this is an easy one.
Hey.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we talked about this 2 or 3 years ago, but when we have a resolution, and the mayor has resolutions, we have resolutions, as you saw, and you look at the General Assembly, they put what is called a physical note attached to they're calling bills, resolutions. I think it's prudent for us, it's a good practice that we have also a physical note attached to it. We talked about this a couple of years ago, and I get there's a little bit of overkill on it because the budget's been passed and expenditures have been appropriated into the lines and everything. I just think it's a good practice for the author, especially on the commission, to put a physical note and give it. It makes it cleaner, in my opinion. So the requirement would be if you're going to introduce, and even if there is no cost, then put 0 in there that the cost is. I mean, we had a resolution not too long just to change the agenda items. Obviously, there wouldn't be any cost to it, but you would still attach a physical note and easy. But the requirement that a physical note be attached to resolutions, I think, is a good idea, and I submit it for everyone's consideration.
What do you think? What do we think as a committee
And
it should be added?
I include the mayor because the mayor has resolutions coming out of his office as well. Most of his stuff has already been thought about with the budget process. It's in there in verse, but I don't think it adds too much burden to put it there. So
Is this all resolutions?
all resolutions, yeah. Because you don't want to
Mr.
get into
Chairman.
you don't want to get into resolutions. This is a resolution requires a physical note, and this one doesn't.
Commissioner Slater?
Can you give me a specific example, what that would look like?
We
Just
talked about
make
that the
one
other
up.
day.
I'm sure you can do that.
What's the last resolution? What's the last resolution? The water one? No. Water one. then it would basically, and I'll, in the form, I mean, it's gonna evolve, right? We took our best guess at it the other day. We took a template from what the state does. But basically, what budget year it's gonna be, right now, we're in the 22-23 budget. It will be, if the next budget will be the 23-24, obviously. What fund, what account, and what line item the expenditure is gonna come out of? And is it a recurring or non-recurring? Keep it simple, but at least it's its own document on the expense side.
And it would be attached to the amendment?
It'd be attached to the amendment, towards the end. It's what the state does, and I know that when I go look at their bills, I read, they put a little bit more descriptive than theirs. It's helpful to me that, you know, you're reading the resolution, you got whereas, but then you can see the actual monetary implications of this resolution. It's just an idea that I had when I was looking at it. We talked about it a couple of years ago. And if we think it's overkill, so be it, but I just thought it was something I would bring to this committee. They had a fiscal note attached to a resolution.
I just add this with ARP. A lot of times we do resolutions approving an expenditure of ARP money, and we've not done the amendment yet. It hasn't gone to finance, but I need your approval so we can move forward with it.
Yeah.
There's sometimes that kind of a thing, but as long as everybody's got gray matter in their brain, it's okay. But there will be, my resolutions always give you the price. 99% of the time they're already budgeted, so it's reminding you this is, I guess we'd have to change the wording to say this is a budgeted item in so-and-so budget. But there are some ARPs sometimes, it's the first thing I can think of, that may not be that far along. But I don't have a problem with what you want to do. There just could be some exceptions is all I'm saying.
We could have such a motion, but you'd say there that exceptions would be accepted.
Well, we know that all ARP money is eventually going to come out of 128.
Yeah.
All right.
And none of it's most of it's not budgeted yet. It's
Yeah.
in the fund balance and we bring it out as we approve things. I may have a resolution, for example, to approve X dollars for cop cars. I need to know that so we can work on getting them ordered, but the amendment's not going to come for a long time, so it's technically not budgeted today. But again, that's ARP. That's different
Yeah.
than most things.
But in the physical note, you have an idea of cost, I guess, and it's.
Yeah. My resolutions will always tell you that, but may not tell you where it's coming from and what line item yet, that kind of stuff, the details you're talking about.
Oh, well, I was just going by what they do at the state, and I like that because it helps me understand what that bill and how it's being paid for. And I thought
Well, mine will say it's paid for out of ARP funds, so it would tell you that. It just wouldn't tell you the specifics.
And eventually, ARPs are going away. So,
Yeah, right.
So I don't want to start off this by making an exception, but that ARPs are unique.
It's a different thing. I just didn't want you to say, well, you sat there and didn't say anything.
But, you know, I'm looking at this. Road committee sends a resolution, and we want to rename all the street signs. Only an example. Then where is that going to come from in there? It's going to be in the 22-23 budget, Fund 131, account 91100, so forth and stuff like that. So, but ARPs are eventually going away. After next year, we won't know about ARP anymore, unless Biden does something crazy.
Further discussion?
I make a motion. I mean, that a physical note is required with the exception of anything out of 128. That's the fund. But if Commissioner presents a resolution, fiscal note, Lori has drafted something we can agree on, that it's required at the time that you present your resolution to the full commission.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Does it have to be an exact amount? Could it be a range that's going to be between? There's going to be
Well,
range.
Another example, Mayor, you made take the 911 I guess that's coming, or any of those, they're gonna be through resolution, or was it the Hawaii utility? Well, that's gonna come out of ARP. Trying to think of a good example. The tasers, what we did a couple years ago. I mean, those negotiations should be already in there. Again, this is just supplemental information, fiscal note. So to answer your question, Chairman Winters, yeah, you would have the amounts in there, so that so the reader would know how much money we're dealing with and where it's coming from.
Okay, moved to second. Further discussion? Guess we're voting on it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Yes, I would.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. We'll submit that to the commission meeting. That closes out this agenda. Are there items you want to place for the future to be looking at? Things that, yeah. we might excuse you from doing that. Yes, sir. Commissioner Alford. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me look. 4. Okay. Yeah. All of it? Or specifics? Yeah. Okay. Non-commission.
Follow it better.
It's right under, it's 4A, it's second. Following an affirmative vote by a majority of commission if there's an objection.
Okay, this is the time limit thing.
Okay,
Next meeting.
I'd like to put that on next meeting. Any further? Is this all? I've been wanting to do this a long time ago. Gee whiz. Man. Wow. Oh. Jeez. Cindy.